So welcome everybody. I hope some of you have enjoyed some of the festival so far. Tonight, as I mentioned, we're going to be talking a little bit about how to get a distinction. And I'm going to go through a little bit of admin first, just to make sure we all know the rules. These meetings are recorded, so please keep your comments in the chat panel and stuff pleasant. The world will see this essentially once they kind of view it later on. So only constructive things, please. Please mute your mic if you are not speaking at the time. So we have kind of 5. We've got myself and Phil, who are the tutors, and we've got 3 student panelists. So if you wouldn't mind just muting your mic, if you're not one of those, it just helps the recording go a lot smoother, and it means that when we're having a discussion about the different points, it won't get cut out when someone else is talking. Zoom reactions and the chat box are your kind of go-to for the first part. We are going to open it up a bit later, and we can have a bit more of a chat, a bit of a Q&A about things, because it's important for us to hear your experience as well. But for the meantime, please feel free to use the chat panel, share some of your experiences. Myself and Phil have got kind of our ideas, but you know, it's you guys that are going to be getting these distinctions, and we've picked 3 people who we think are very good. But I'm very aware there's a lot of people on here who might have already got one or are thinking different tips and hints and tricks to get them there. So please jump on the chat panel. It's a great feature, and you know, you can make friends. So a bit of an itinerary of what we're going to go over. So first of all, we're going to meet the panel. Then we're going to go straight into it, our panel chat on how to get a distinction, and then we're going to open it up to a bit of Q&A. So without further ado, my name is Martin. I am ACCA qualified, and I'm an AAT distance learning tutor with First Intuition. I've been with the company just under a year now, and before that I worked for Morrison Supermarkets. That's where I studied my ACCA, and I suppose I could call myself a distinction student because I was 1 mark away from a global prize winning mark with the Strategic Business Leader paper of ACCA, which is a bit of a rubbish thing to shout about because I was still 1 away, but as such, that was me. We also have tonight another tutor by the name of Phil.
Hi everyone, I'm Phil. I'm also an AAT distance learning tutor here at First Intuition. I've been with the company since 2017, so a number of years now. Feel like part of the furniture. And yeah, I just love AAT, live and breathe AAT, and I also look after the live online students at level 4.
Really?
And we have we have our guest panel. So first I can see is Ruth Lowe. Do you want to say hello?
Yeah, hi, evening everyone. So yeah, I'm a live online student. So Phil is my tutor this year. I'm doing level 4.
Awesome.
Thank you. Next we have Sarah.
Hi, so I'm a level 4 student. I started level 2 in June last year, and I've got a distinction in level 2 and level 3, and I'm an accounts and audit trainee now.
Brilliant. And finally we have the lovely Megan.
Hi, I'm Megan. I started AAT in September last year, just doing 2 exams for my level 2 to get through so I can start my level 3. I have my level 3 synoptic at 9 AM tomorrow morning. So I've done 3 of my exams so far, which I've got distinctions in. So we'll see how tomorrow goes. I'm new to finance in September last year, and I do finance for a school. So hoping to do my level 4 in the next month or so.
Great. Good luck for tomorrow. What have we got next? So I wanted to quickly actually touch on a distinction in general, because we all like to say, oh, I got a distinction, and I was shouting to the rafters about my nearly global prize winning mark. But I also think it's important to remember kind of what it symbolizes. So you've got, everybody will have seen this, but if you haven't, a bit of a breakdown. Anything between 70 and 79 is a pass. Then you go from 80 to 89, which is merit. And after that, you get into the distinction bracket, which is 90 to 100. And I think it's important to aim for that, because not only is it something to kind of hang on your shoulder and say, check me out, but when you understand that much of a unit, specifically actually with level 3, a lot of them kind of flow into each other. Advanced bookkeeping is very much what I consider to be the foundation of most of the papers, still even at level 4. And if you're up there in that kind of 90 to 100, and I think a couple of the ladies here have got that 100, your knowledge throughout the rest of the papers is going to be so much more kind of advanced. You're almost giving yourself a head start. I don't know if anybody wants to add to that.
I think it is important to aim for 90 to 100, but then it's also important to actually recognise that a pass is a pass. Sure. And even though, you know, 70% is still a pass. It's not bad, it's not horrible, and you know, it's still worth something. So it's not the end of the world, but obviously it is nice to aim high. Definitely.
I think ACCA pass rate is 50%, and I got a 50%. So I really value that 70%, 50% mark. But I know from personal experience that kind of, if you get on with a unit, really capitalize on it. If you're enjoying it, aim for 100, because it will pay dividend for so long after.
And I think it's funny as well that you can see the difference in the levels. So at level 2, when people start out, they do quite well and they get like 99%, and they'll be absolutely distraught because they've lost 1% and they don't know where it's gone. And then when you see them progress, they'll get to level 4 and they'll be over the moon that they've got 70% on professional synoptic. So you can see the difference in mindset on some of the levels, which is quite interesting as a tutor.
Yeah, I agree. Laura's saying on something about your Facebook group, Phil.
Yes.
It's frustrating when people get a 70 and they want to reset it to get a pass. I don't think I'd do that. I think I'd be happy with my pass and move on.
But on that, I can see people's point of view, purely because yes, it's if you're struggling with a unit and you're happy that you've passed, and then you see someone got 78%, wants to resit it, but everyone has their own target. So if they're aiming for a distinction, that could be the one unit that they need to do that. So everyone's got different things going on. But yeah, I can see both points of view based on that.
Good one. I think you have to be one or the other, don't you? You have to be like
definitely.
I must be 100, or I was like, burn this book. So jumping into our kind of questions for our panel then. So we have selected what we consider to be some of the cream of the crop. Sarah was my student, and she absolutely rattled through level 3, and I think it was 2.5 months, and got above 90 on every single one, which is stupendous. I know that Ruth and Megan have both just had 100% exams. So we picked these guys because they're very approachable. We think they've got an awful lot to tell in terms of their story for you. So I'm hoping these prompting questions that were designed by the lovely Nick Craggs will help us out. So I'm just going to probably go down from top to bottom. How you studied? So Ruth?
Yeah, so as I said, I'm a live online student. So obviously I'm doing the live classes. So for each module, that's a couple of evenings a week. And then what I would do is I kind of am revising as I go along as well. So I don't think you can kind of like just do your, your 4 weeks of, so it might be 8 classes, 4 weeks of studying online. And then it might be that you kind of are expecting to sit the exam within 2 or 3 weeks of the classes finishing. And that for me just like wouldn't be enough time to, revise. So what I tend to do is during the week, got the classes, and then I'll kind of be going over what we've done. I might listen to the recordings, or I might just go through the notes, the course notes. And I kind of make like my revision notes as I go along, because I'm also somebody who I can't go from the great big lovely wonderful first intuition course notes like straight down to flashcards. It's like that's too big a leap. So I kind of do like revision notes, A4 sort of revision notes, which ends up being less sheets of paper than a set of course notes. And then kind of when the course is studied, that's what I'll narrow down into my sort of, my really short kind of flashcards or whatever it might be. But yeah, so I tend to try and do a lot as I'm going along so that I don't have too much to do. Then I can really focus on things like mocks and the AAT mocks and the AAT green light stuff kind of when my course is finished. At that point, I've pretty much done with the first intuition stuff other than the first intuition mocks.
Yeah, brilliant. And I suppose just for a bit of context to those of us who aren't, or those of you who aren't first intuition students, how we like to kind of suggest you go about it is we introduce question practice extremely early. So you've got your kind of theory in your textbook, but with that comes a question bank. So once you've done chapter 1, we test you through different questions on chapter 1, and it goes all through that. and then you move on to revision stage, which is more the task bank and the mocks. Thank you very much, Ruth. Sarah, how do you study?
So I'm a distance learning pupil. You are obviously my mentor. So I take it in a very different way to Ruth. In a way, I like to set aside my time, and I kind of basically listen to people reading me the notes, which I find very helpful. It's nice because you get different like examples and everything. So that's the best thing about learning the distance learning, is you can kind of hear how someone's explaining it to you, and it's so much better than just reading it, because it just comes across a lot better. So in mine, I'll try and do a couple of chapters a week, but generally I find you do things in the time that you give yourself to do it. So I'll always book my exam before I'm kind of even really starting the unit, because if I give myself all of this time in the world to do it, I won't do it. And I found that out in January when I started my level 4. I just gave myself all the time in the world, and I didn't really kind of do my financial statements because I didn't set my exam. And then as soon as I did that,
I remember chasing you.
Yeah, that's it. But as soon as I set my exam, that was it. I had no choice but to carry on and do it. I wasn't going to lose my 100 quid that I'd paid. So that's kind of what I do. I just motivate myself through not losing money.
Quite right. I think it's interesting, the kind of different slight styles. I'm very much like you, Sarah. I'm actually dyslexic, and I always considered it a bit of a handicap with ACCA, but actually once I found my way, which is very much a visual and audible learner, I was watching the videos over and over again. And you said something interesting, is it's nice to hear other people explain it, which I think for me, just reading a textbook tends to start just going in one ear and out the other. I wasn't so hot with my targets. I just kind of had to kind of do more in chunks, but I was definitely up for the videos. They were brilliant. And I think probably, no question, the answer to me passing so well. Megan, what was your thoughts on how do you study?
Well, this has worked out quite well because I am completely different from both of the other two again.
Fantastic.
Not intended.
I find with the videos, I'm not a visual learner. I learn by doing. So when I watch the videos, and I started off my first level 2 by watching them, and I find, and I had it when I was at school, that I would just start to just sort of zone out, and I'll start thinking about something else. And then I'll come back and think, what did that person say? Or I realise the video's been on for 5 minutes and I've not listened to any of it. So I sacked that off and just started going through the book. So what I'll do is I'll go through the first chapter where there's lecture examples. So there's examples along the way in the chapters. And then when you get to the end of the chapter, you then do the question bank. I'll then go back and watch the video, because I find that there's things in the video and things that the tutors all mention and examples they'll give that aren't mentioned in the course notes that are really valuable. So it's not just them sort of reading what's on the page to you, they add into it, which is really helpful, and I'll then make notes on the page on that and bits that I haven't picked up on. And I do follow through the folder sort of step by step. I'll do the work through the chapters, then the question bank and the task bank, and then onto the mocks. I just find the way that First Intuition do it, by just repeat, works really well for me. And just by doing the questions over and over again, it clicks in my mind on how to do it. Whereas if someone explains it to me verbally, I just can't take it in. So yeah.
Repetition's a big one. Phil, I'm going to give you your chance, because you obviously have gone through this journey too. When you studied, how did you study?
Yeah, so I love that there's all these different methods of studying, and there is no right and wrong way. You just need to find a way that works for you, which I like, and it's good that we can hear other people's opinions and see how they did it. So for myself, I used to work through the materials, and I also studied with First Intuition, so I had the same question bank and task bank and the pre-recorded videos, and I never actually used the pre-recorded videos. I found they was a bit slow, so I used to like learning at a fast pace, so I used to just read through the books, but then if I got stuck on a book, I would then go to the video just for that section, because I was stuck in the book and I've read the book, I still didn't understand it, so I'd then go and look at the video and just get a bit more in depth, and I found the videos helped me that way. So I wouldn't watch them all, I would just watch them when I got stuck, and I found that worked for me.
Wow.
It's very interesting, because there's like an analogy, I think it was like an Einstein thing, where there's like a monkey hanging on a tree, and then it's like, if you ask a monkey or a fish to climb this tree, he's not able to climb it. And it's interesting to kind of, you're never going to fit like a round peg in a square hole. Well, you are. You're never going to fit a square peg in a round hole. But it's important, I think, to understand that it might not be the perfect way for you to read through the books. Some of us are different. I mean, we've got one that reads through the books fast, one that goes slow, one that repeats and repeats and repeats. Myself and Sarah love the videos and hearing different sort of mediums of the information. So it is nice. And I suppose something I would definitely say on one of the main things is find your style, because unless you're enjoying it, and unless you're taking it in and it feels like quality revision, you're always going to feel like you're up against it. And I've been in both sides where I've enjoyed studying something because I kind of knew how I worked. I knew not to be too hard on myself. Come back in an hour. We should crack on with these questions though. So what did your revision plan look like if you had one? We've kind of touched on this, so feel free to keep it brief. Hey, Ruth?
Yeah, I don't really have revision plans. What I do is I'm with Sarah on the whole issue of like booking your exam. So in my head, I would kind of think a module shouldn't really take more than, 8-10 weeks. I think it was like 12 weeks for financial statements, which was just like so long, 3 months of doing the same module, because I get quite bored. And also, I'm quite an old student and my poor old brain can't kind of hold on to information for that long. So I'm a little bit what you're saying, like actually I like to get through stuff quite quickly. But I definitely think it's a really good idea to have your exam book, because then that gives you that target. You've got that target date to work to. And then I don't really have a plan as such, but I'm like, I just know I've got to fit everything in before that exam date. And as I was saying before, generally I suppose my plan is that I've kind of covered all the theory by the end of the live classes, and then it's just like practice question. I mean, and obviously I've been doing practice, as you've said, I've been doing like the question bank and the task bank, but then it's just like all the questions you can practice in the world. And I don't know whether I'm allowed to say this, but I do use the workbooks, not the tutorials, but I do use the workbooks of one or two of the other there's 3 big kind of training providers, aren't there, for AAT?
Hit you in a minute, Ruth.
But I just think it's a confidence thing as well, because if I go to an exam and I'm like, do you know what, I've done every single question that I could lay my hands on, then what is there to be worried about an AAT exam? Yeah. So in part, it gives me the confidence if I've just done everything I can. And I absolutely would do the AAT mocks online, and I do them several times, which probably sounds a bit crazy. But I actually find that really helps, just doing them like several times over. And I do the AAT green light stuff several times over, and I'm always really amazed because they show the stats on those, and the stats that they show say that most students basically only take them once and they might get like 65%. And I kind of think, why would you do that? So if I do them the first time and I get 65%, I'm like, I'm just going to keep doing those green light tests until I can get 98%, 99, 100% is what I'm trying to get in those green light tests. So yeah, so that's kind of like my revision plan. It's just a lot of question practice is really, really, really important.
So based on this revision plan, we've had a question in the chat box. You've obviously you're on level 4 now, so you've done each level. Does your revision go increase per level?
Yeah, definitely for sure. I mean, level 4 has been like a massive step up, and financial statements for me was by far the hardest module. There was so much content and so much to go through and so much to remember that I did put a lot of hours into that, more than the other ones. I mean, obviously level 2 was kind of really straightforward, didn't that didn't really take very many hours. Level 3 obviously is a, you know, is a step up, but yeah, level 4, yeah, I'm quite fortunate because I don't work full time. So again, I mean, everybody's different and you can only do what you've got the time to do, can't you? But I suppose I've got a bit of a trade-off because I don't work full time, so I perhaps have more time than other people, but I don't work in finance. Like I don't have a desperately trying to get a finance job, but I don't have a finance job at the moment. So, you know, I know most people are working in finance, so you've kind of got colleagues and experience to draw on, and I don't have that. But I probably make up for that in the fact that I perhaps have more time to spend studying.
Yep.
We've actually got a couple more questions that I think Sarah will be perfect to answer one, and perhaps Megan. In fact, all of us. First one from Lucy. Did anybody study more than one at a time, or did you all study them individually?
I did bookkeeping transactions and bookkeeping controls at the same time, and I had the exams on the same day.
Wow, well done. What about level 3? Did you do them all separately?
Well, I overlapped some of my studying, but other than that, I made sure I had my exams separately. But I remember I booked indirect tax, and the exam centre couldn't put me in for ages. So I think I started bookkeeping after that one, and I kind of was doing the two at the same time.
Yeah, because you gave me 3 or 4 exam dates in one email. And I think, so you were like super organized, where I think you got the flavor of the first one and thought, do you know what, I can get these. So then put the next 2.5 months up. And I think it's a really interesting approach. Megan, how about you?
I think I booked a lot of exams in back-to-back, but that was mostly because it was during lockdown and my local exam centres all closed, apart from one in Cambridge at First Intuition. And it was really difficult to get onto exams and they were booking up really quick. So I booked mine in, but I really find, and I'll continue to do it, by booking my exam, it then motivates me to get it done. In the course books, it says at the beginning with the revision planner how long roughly it should take you and how many exam sessions or revision sessions to do. And that's dependent entirely on you. And I think as you get through the levels, you'll realise sort of how quickly you tend to go in comparison to those. For me, I'll knock a few weeks off it, but I'll always give myself a little bit of extra time because things come up and you go away and work gets busy and things. But I tend to go with what the book says, knock a couple of weeks off and just make sure I've got sort of plenty of time. But it really depends on you and how much time you've got to do them. And then I use the revision planner in the book and try and schedule into my diary when I'm going to do a few hours here and there. And that just tends to flex throughout the month where I miss a session or I spend a little bit longer or I get more done than I thought. And it tends to even itself out for me with missing sessions and then doing more than I planned.
Phil, so keeping on our kind of revision track, I think this is our last revision question. Did you make up your own notes? So something I learned was very useful was I used to have a big wall. I sit next to a wall and my whole wall was just canvassed in study material. So when I was doing mocks and stuff, I could cheat all the time. And I would cheat and cheat and cheat with my study notes and with my flashcards and stuff up until the last couple of days before the exam. And I think it really helped me. Did you guys make your own mind maps, flashcards, anything like that?
I only did with indirect tax because you told me to. So I did it with that one purely because I think I really struggled with the step up between level 2 and level 3 for some unknown reason. And indirect tax I found really challenging in a way because it's a lot to remember in that unit. And so I did with that one purely because you told me to.
Flashcards, I think, on the reference material, isn't it? Because there were so many rules.
That's it, isn't it?
You can't
all the
keep
rules.
it in your head.
But generally, no, I don't. I just go with the flow a lot with it, to be honest. I think the First Intuition notes are great, so I don't feel the need to actually make any of my own.
I was the same, Sarah. Mind maps and flashcards just never worked for me. I did have a go at them, but I just felt I couldn't write it better than what was already in the notes. So I just read the notes. So it just didn't work for me, but I do know a lot of students where it does work for them and they do it quite often. How about yourself, Megan?
I find I've tried the notes with the synoptic because there's not so much doing that you can do, especially with the ethical side of it. With like the costing and the accounts prep and things, you can run through the processes again and again and again. But to write sort of sentences about the ethical procedures and things isn't really the done thing. So I was trying to do sort of different mind maps on all the principles and all the sort of wordy stuff, but it doesn't really work for me. And I know lots of people that will write reams and reams and reams of flashcards because that works for them, and there's certainly a lot of information and notes that you can take down in addition to the course notes, but I just go with repetition and doing the task bank, and there's so many mocks available and resources on the AAT website that just keeps me busy up until the exam.
The only time I did it was when I did financial statements, and it was purely because they've got all the definitions and things, and you need to know the terminology. So I used to write them on post-it notes and stick them to the fridge, and then I wasn't allowed in the fridge unless I'd read everything on the fridge.
It's a good tip.
And it was just to remember the definitions, and that's all I used it for.
Yeah, and I was the same as you, Phil, actually. I think really the only module that I've kind of felt I needed to make quite a lot of notes was financial statements, and it's just because there's like so much of the accounting standards and the definitions and everything that I just felt I couldn't do that without notes. But then I had like I had pages and pages of notes, and so you can't. But one of the things I found really helpful for that, which was a suggestion I think that like another student had made, because I never would have thought of it, was I recorded all those definitions and things onto my phone, and then when I was out like walking the dog and stuff, I'd just be listening to those on my phone. And I found that really helped a lot as well, because trying to learn all those definitions and all the accounting standards is a real hard slog. So that really helped. But I think most of the other modules, I can't think of other modules where like most of the stuff, it's more kind of numerical, isn't it? And it's more processes and procedures of like tackling something, and then I think
understanding something.
But I think that's just repetition of questions. I mean, I don't know how you'd make notes on doing an actual financial statement. I mean, I don't know how you'd go about making notes on like how to do your statement of profit and loss. I mean, I think that's just lots and lots and lots of practice.
Yeah, good, brilliant. Financial statements is coming up a lot actually for the times in the comments that people did make notes, so definitely one to watch out for. The next question here is a bit about the kind of build up to your exam. So I'm not ashamed to say I had a bit of a routine. I'd done the same sort of thing the day before. I always stopped at 6 p.m. the night before. I always had a good kind of tea, went to bed quite early, and then on the way to the exam, I would listen to Lose Yourself by Eminem and just really get every word right on that rap. And if I did, my exam was going to go okay. Do you have any kind of routines or rituals that you follow?
Do a rendition of that now.
I think my exam sitting days for now are over, but perhaps another time, Sarah.
What I do in the week up to my exam is I don't necessarily advise this for everyone, but I always leave my mocks, my first intuition mocks, for the last week, purely because it's then incredibly fresh in my mind, and I just think it helps me a lot. And then the night before, I'll always redo the AAT mocks, because it helps you kind of get your mindset in the way that they do their exams. And, that's obviously very important to be able to do the exams the way that they do it. Yeah. So I do that. And then my exams are always at 9:30 in the morning and an hour and a half away. So I get up, I go there and I have a McDonald's breakfast and I sit there, eat that and just chill out. That's my thing.
Good, lovely. Megan, how about you? Do you have any kind of oddities?
I'm the same. I do my mocks in the week building up. I've done 2 synoptic mocks today in preparation for tomorrow. After this, I don't always do an hour-long seminar on AAT before I do an exam. The new one. Maybe it'll work. But yeah, it got to 6 o'clock and I was like, that's enough for today. I've done everything that I can, and just let my mind switch off from it, read a book, watch some TV. Otherwise I just won't sleep. I'll be dreaming spreadsheets. And then tomorrow get up, have something solid for breakfast, and crack on with it, and try not to put too much pressure on it. What will be will be.
Yes.
Good. And Ruth?
Yeah, so in like the day before an exam, I kind of try and do very little. Like I kind of want that to be almost like a rest day. So I hopefully, if everything's gone according to plan, like in the previous couple of weeks, like I won't be needing to do very much. What I probably will do the day before is I'll definitely reread the examiner's report, because I find those really, really helpful. And I will probably have a quick look through the AAT mocks online, but I kind of won't really be doing them because I'll have already done them like 2 or 3 times already. But as I think Sarah was saying, just to kind of remind myself, you know, like, yeah, this is kind of how they like to set the questions, this is the task order, so it's just a bit of a refresh. But that would really be it the day before. And then it's definitely like trying to get a good night's sleep, trying to get my 18-year-old not to be up really late shouting at the Xbox so that I can get to sleep early. Yeah.
Brilliant.
I would. I was the same. I wouldn't do anything the night before because I wanted a good night's sleep. But then I always booked an afternoon exam, and then in the morning of the exam, I always saved the second AAT mock. So the morning of the exam, that's the only time I did that second AAT mock. But I found that it got me into the mindset of answering the AAT questions ready for my exam, and I found that helped for me. So yeah, that was my routine.
I'd be exhausted by the afternoon though, but then feel like I just wouldn't have the energy to do the actual exam.
I definitely think there's something in a warm-up though, because I was a bit similar to Phil. I wouldn't do a mock because I'd be terrified of the result, but I'd do a couple of questions just to get me going a bit, get me thinking in the right terms. So I think there is something to say about a warm-up. What have we got? Did you start, and I think this means potentially the exam as well. So do you start the exam task 1, task 2, task 3, task 4, or do you pick out your favorite questions or your worst questions first? Ruth, please.
So this is a really interesting question, because literally up until level 4, I never would have dreamt of doing an exam other than the order that it's set in. So level 2, level 3, actually, first 2 modules that I did at level 4 was budgeting and decision and control. And I just did all of those in the order that they're set, because I kind of figure that AAT have sort of set them in a certain order for a reason. So the first time it even occurred to me, and it was being talked about a lot, and it was being suggested by tutors to maybe do things in a slightly different order, was financial statements and especially the synoptic as well. So for financial statements, I sort of had an idea that I might not do it in order, but it depended what was going to come up on task 1 and 2. And Phil knows I was praying to get cash flow for task 1 and 2.
Yep.
But so if people don't know, level 4 financial statements, task 1 and 2, you're either going to get to do financial statements, so profit and loss and a balance sheet, or you get cash flow. And in my view, cash flow is just so much easier and quicker. And I got really lucky, and I got cash flow, and that meant that I did 1 and 2 first. If I hadn't have got cash flow, if I'd got the statements, then I was going to jump, and I can't remember now which task it is, but I was going to go and jump and do like the ratios task first, just to get like a bit of confidence, because the financial statements tasks are quite, you know, they take a long time, it's really easy to make mistakes and things. So I think on that one I kind of got lucky, so I did that paper in order, but I had an idea that I might not. And then with the synoptic, we were kind of recommended to do the non-written tasks first, so that was like task 1 and 5. And then to do the written ones, which for me makes sense, because I think if you can get kind of like the numerical questions out of the way, then you can see how much time you've got left, and you might have more time than the nominal times that are given for your written questions. So the logic of that did make perfect sense to me. but it didn't quite work out in my synoptic exam because tasks 1 and 5 were not very nice. I took quite a long time on both of those. So actually, in the end, in a way, with my synoptic, I kind of wish I'd just worked through it in order. But yeah, so I think some of it just kind of depends on the module you're taking. I think in general, most of them, you would just, there wouldn't be any point in doing them in a different order. But I think when you get into the modules where you've got written tasks, then sometimes it might be worth, changing the order of things.
Cool.
You'll find out your synoptic result in 2 days' time.
Phil, no, don't say that. I have a bad feeling about it.
So you can see if that worked.
It was not a good exam.
Yeah, I'm a big believer of doing them all in order because I like order and I like just working through them one at a time. And when I was doing my exams, again, the only time I went against that was the financial statements unit because task 4 is all about IASs and IFRSs, and there's so many of them, you could get anything. And that was the only task I was concerned about. So again, I booked an afternoon exam, but I got to the exam centre early and I went over all the IASs in the car park for about an hour. And then when I went into my exam, my plan was to do that first. So I jumped onto that and I actually dropped on, and it was the very last thing I'd read in the car about 10 minutes before. So I got that out of the way, and that helped my mindset because I felt so relieved that I got that out of the way and I got a good question that I went on and did well in the rest of the exam. So yeah, you can swap it and change it depending on what exam you're doing.
Good. Anybody else got anything to say? I know that I always done the easiest one first, and just exactly the same as you. It gave me such a boost, Phil. I was like, right, smash that. Let's move on to the trickier stuff. Did anybody else have any kind of, Sarah, you got something to say? I can see you nodding away.
I tend to do the written tasks first, mostly because I know I'll be all right with the numerical ones, but the written ones, you could get anything. And I just think it's easier to spend the time doing that. And I usually allocate an amount of time to do it. So I'll do that, say, for half an hour for my written ones, and then I'll go back and start all the way through. And then there's usually some time at the end that I'll go back through again. But I do the ones I enjoy the most first. It puts you in a good mood, gets you going, oh, this is actually not that bad. And then, so that's what I do.
That's what you done on level 3 as well, kind of found the funnest one.
Yeah. Always. I always find the best one.
Yeah. Megan, did you have any kind of particular order, or were you just a task 1 to task 10?
Yeah, I like to just go from the start to beginning. I always finish with loads and loads of time, but I would just be worried that I'd spend so much time going through and reading the questions to find one that I knew that I'd miss out. So I just start at the beginning. The only reason I would skip forwards is if I was really stuck on something or something just wasn't coming, because sometimes I find you just have a brain block, especially on the first question. And also they like to word things in a really annoying roundabout way. They're asking a question by asking you several questions first, and I just sometimes I can't get it into my head what they're talking about, so I'll just go on to the next thing and just my brain will start getting into motion. And I like the mix of something hard, something super easy, and then you go and do something hard, and then they treat you with a really easy one. So I like to just go through the motions, but I will move forwards and just come back to something if it's just not clicking.
Brilliant. I think we have a duplicate question here actually, so I'm going to skip past it. What would be your top tips of what not to do? And just remember, you're talking about those ones where you got your distinction, or just in general, what were things that you've learned from that you would say, yeah, do not do that again? And this one, if you've got anything, just shout out, because I'm aware that some of you might be perfect, but I've got a few horror stories. So if anybody does, what are your thoughts?
Always make sure you scroll down to the bottom of the page, because on my indirect tasks, I didn't scroll all the way down and I missed 2 questions.
Good one.
And it's like the most common thing ever said is always read the question, but I just you just cannot express enough. They can be quite wordy, and I always say, I don't know if I'm just being bitter, but it's like they're trying to trip you up on things, and they'll ask you to do something a certain way on one question, and then in the next question it's almost exactly the same, but something is slightly different. If you miss that, you can then, it just causes a domino effect on the question. And I always try, if you've got time, to go back through the whole exam, because I know on my one that I got 100% on, I know I went back to a question and changed it afterwards, and it was like the whole thing. I was like, oh, hang on a minute, that number's not right. And then I had to change all different things. So go back through your work, read the question, read it again, and really think about what they're asking you to do. And one thing I say to colleagues and things that are doing the course is, my biggest tip of what not to do is to panic if you don't understand something. Every time I start a new folder, I start reading and I think, I am never, ever going to understand this. This is so complicated. And I've just learned after several modules and exams to just not have that mindset and think, I've got no idea what you're talking about. I'm just going to move on to the next bit, because I know after repeating, it's going to come through eventually. And there's so much repetition through the folders. You do it in your course notes, and then you do a lecture example, and then you do your task bank, and then you do your question bank, and then you do your mock exam, and then you do another one. And by the end of that, you'll have it. So don't panic if you don't have it on the first go, because I almost never, ever do.
Brilliant. I know that panicking is a big one for me. And that because some of the books in ACCA are like yay thick, and you're like, what on earth is that? But you're right. It's just look at the first chapter, then the second, then the third. Moving on, we have post-exam treat. Did anybody have a post-exam treat? I always used to have a Five Guys, so I'm going to start off here. Five Guys with the most expensive burger, all the way, I think they call it, and then Dr. Pepper with cherry and vanilla syrup. I hope it's not just me that is that weird. Did anybody else have a little treat?
Just to make everyone aware, the tutors here at First Intuition always get a little bit excited when food starts getting mentioned.
I always have a Domino's. Always a Domino's with some wings and cookies. It's got to be cookies as well. That's my thing.
Wagamama's in the chat box.
Oh, yes.
Good one.
Chocolate cake, as Phil knows, is my thing. So that's my post-exam treat. It's always chocolate cake.
So again, I did an afternoon exam every time, and whenever I come out of the exam, I would always call into a pub at the end and have a pub meal. So I did that every exam. So yeah, that was my treat. Pub meal.
Can't whack a good pub meal.
Yeah, I walk out of the First Intuition office in Cambridge, and just down the road is Tesco Express, and I go straight in there and buy a share bag of chocolate, a bag of salt and vinegar hula hoops, and a drink, and then I just go and sit in my car and just and then follow that up with a week off, because you've got, well, I have to take a break. I tried not taking a break, and I sat down and opened up that fresh next module book, and my brain just went, nope, not taking on any new information for a few days. So I've learned now that I have to take a week off, because you force all this information in, and then your brain just needs a little bit of time just to chill out afterwards.
No,
I think it does.
I don't know. I'm very different. If I don't start next one the next day, I'm just not going to start it.
Right.
Oh.
So I have to start it.
I wish I was that way.
I agree with Megan. I quite like the break after a full unit.
Yeah,
I quite like a bit of a rest.
I need a little bit of a break before I start again. Yeah.
Especially after statements and followed by the synoptic.
Yeah, I had a really big long break. I had about a month where I did nothing after that, Phil. Yeah, so it's been, yeah, I really needed that. I didn't realise actually how exhausted I was to doing those two back to back.
Ruth,
it is exhausting.
Ruth, you did level 3 online, didn't you? And then you did level 4 live online.
So I actually started level 3 I was at my local college. So I did level 2 at my local college, and I started level 3 there as well. And then it was when we went into lockdown. I was like 2 weeks away from sitting like one of the budgeting, I can't remember the modules at level 3 now, but one of the budgeting exams, and literally like my college just closed. Which was really annoying because I was all ready to go. And then that's the point at which I found first intuition, thank goodness, because then I was able to carry on and finish level 3, and then obviously started level 4.
How have you found the change in structure? Because you're doing level 4 live online, which is obviously very fast paced now. And it pushes you on, so you don't have that time or luxury to give yourself more time or to book an exam whenever you wish, because you have to get the exam booked in before the next class and it pushed on. So how have you found that?
Yeah, I think I found it I found it fine, because to be honest, it's not, to begin with, it wasn't that different to what you'd do at college, because at college they'd have it all planned out so that you did, you know, one level was going to be done between September and July, you know, within that year. So at college it was very much the same way. You know, it was all planned out. You did a module, sit an exam, module, exam. So I found that very similar. And at the start in September of level 4, it was fine. I think what I did find really tricky was I started financial statements in January. And then, as you know, which is like massive module. And I found that really, really difficult one as well. And then we went straight into synoptic. And that's the first time where I did really feel it was so full on, and it did really kind of exhaust me, but that's really the only point. And then now obviously I've just got like my two I've got my 2 optional modules to do, and maybe a synoptic resit. But
no synoptic resit.
Well, let's hope not. I'll try and be positive. Let's hope it's not a resit, but who knows. But now I don't feel any pressure at all, because actually I can do those as, you know, as quickly as I want to, or I can take my time. And I think that's the beauty actually of the AAT qualification and of the way that first intuition works, because actually you can take your time if you want to. And like Bill, you're always emailing us and saying if anyone's feeling overwhelmed, and, you know, to talk to you. And so, you know, and I know at one point I did have a conversation with you about possibly delaying taking my synoptic, and then when it came to it, I just thought, you know what, I might as well take it, and if I have failed, then I can resit it. It's no big deal. I mean,
and what did you end up getting in the synoptic?
No, that's the one I'm getting my results on Thursday.
In the statements, wasn't it? 100%.
Yeah, statements was
crazy. That is crazy.
That kind of leads us on, actually. Did anybody know they were going to get a distinction before they got the results?
Sometimes, some exams, I think particularly at the lower level. So I know, like when I was doing level 2. This is, I don't know whether I should say this. This is going to sound, I don't mean this to sound big-headed, but literally the first module I did at level 2, I got 98%, and I was really disappointed because I was convinced I'd got 100% in that. I was so convinced. But yeah, so at the earlier levels, I think I definitely felt with each exam that I knew that I'd done well. But then I think as you go up the levels, I find it's hard. So there's definitely been some exams where I think they've not gone well at all, and then actually I have got a really good result, and that's quite surprised me. So yeah.
Sarah, I saw you were nodding your head, in fact. How did you kind of, because I know that you knew you'd done well, and you berate yourself for 1-2%, and you tell me in your feedback what you got wrong. How did you kind of feel when you were sitting those level 3s and you knew you were going to do quite well? Can you sort of talk us through the mindset of knowing what really good looks like?
It's when you do your happy dance when you're doing your exam. That's how you know. I am always there, and I feel really bad because there's people, and they can all see me because I usually sit in the front, and I'm just there, just dancing, going, yes, that's right. And it's just that little win after little win for each task, and you just know, you just feel like it's gone well. And yeah, you don't need to get 100% for it to be perfect. To me, it's still perfect, you know. And I just feel so happy going through each task that you just know it's once they've printed that sheet off at the end as well, and you get those, oh yeah, exceeded, and it's like, yes, I know that went well. And it's the feeling. It's just feeling.
It's a confidence, isn't it? I think I certainly feel it with stuff that I know, and I'm like, right, business mode. I know this in the bag. Yeah. I don't dawdle. I don't kind of stop. I'm just like, right, step one. And it comes back to that repetition, I think, with what Ruth was saying. If you've done it so many times, you almost go into autopilot and you're like, I know what this is. Same question, different words. How about you guys, Phil and Megan? Did you know that you'd done really well?
No. So I, especially on my last exam, my management accounting costing, I went through all the questions, I did them all, I went through the whole exam, I then went through the entire exam again, did all the questions, and just thought, well, I've done everything I can. That's what I think the answer is. I hope it's right. And then sort of you submit your exam, went home and just thought, and the exams didn't come through until the results didn't come through till the next day. Normally it's like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Didn't sleep, just thought I failed my exam. I was absolutely gutted. And then I got my result through the next day and I'd got 99%. And I was like, oh.
There must have been something subconscious there where you knew it. And it probably comes back to repetition. You kind of didn't know that you knew you were doing it right, but you were, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe I'm just terrible with self-doubt, but for all of my exams, I've just thought, well, that's what I think the answer is. So hopefully it is. And I think that's for anyone, isn't it? You always put what you think the answer is, don't you? But so, yeah, I'm not looking forward to the 6-week wait for my synoptic result.
For anyone that's completed a level, did you use the grade calculator on AAT to look into what you needed for your final exam to get the distinction?
Yeah.
So that didn't put you off, put extra pressure on knowing what you needed to get?
No, I don't know. I think I was stressing about it. So I thought I'd look at what I'd got so far on the first 3 exams. And then I'm not doing my indirect tax until after my synoptic. So I think that one will be all right because I've looked at the folder and it's not that thick. So that's what I've based that knowledge on. The folder's not thick, so it'll be fine. So I've worked out what I need to get on my synoptic to pass. And then I also looked at what I needed on my synoptic to get a distinction, but I think that might be wishful thinking, but we'll see.
Yeah, I did the same as Megan and I felt that took the pressure off. So level 3 synoptic, I worked out what I needed to get my distinction overall because I've got distinction in all the other modules, but I think the synoptic exams are so much harder to get to. I mean, they're just a completely different kind of beast, aren't they? So I wasn't as confident about being able to get a distinction in that, but it really took the pressure off to know what I needed to get in that, which I think I needed to get something like 80% in that to get my distinction overall. And I felt that just really helped me going into the exam. Actually, it kind of took the pressure off. That was sort of the one exam where I was like, you know what, if I don't get distinction that's fine. I'm not gonna, be hard on myself, but I would like to still get my distinction overall for the level. So, but that was one of the exams where I came out and I had no idea how that had gone. I literally came out of that exam and kind of thought I might have got 50%, I might have just scraped a pass, or I might have got 95%. I literally, it was I had a bit of a nightmare with it, but I just genuinely had no idea really how I'd done. I found that one very hard to judge.
Great stuff. So we're going to jump in and be answering some of the questions that we haven't answered so far, but just next, so questions ready if you have got something, but I'm going to be a bit mean now and give you 15 seconds to tell us how to get a distinction each. And I'm going to start with Ruth. So 3, and I'm going to time this, Ruth. 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, question practice, guys. Just question practice. Question practice, question practice, question practice. Examiner's report, AAT mocks, AAT green light.
Stop. Your time is up. Thank you very much. Next, we're going to go with Sarah. 3, 2, 1, go.
Repetition of everything. Go overthink a couple of nights before and just believe in yourself and don't stress too much. Don't try and do too much before your exam because it'll just overwhelm you. So just go.
Too late. Thank you very much. And finally, Megan. Oh, we'll do us all actually. Megan, 3, 2, 1, go.
Trust the folder, work through the modules and the chapters one by one, repeat. Do the mocks, do a mock the day before. That's my number one thing, do the mocks.
And stop. And Phil, 3, 2, 1, go.
Yeah, use the AAT website. Make sure you've done all the work available to you. If you've got a tutor, use your tutor. I know Ruth used me, and we always emailed everyone. So yeah, just keep practicing and keep talking to people.
Stop. And I'll go, and I'll be honest. 3, 2, 1, go. I would say repetition is key. I would say cheat your way if you do not know. If you're doing a mock and you're unsure, go straight to the back of the book, find the answer and make it a quality mock that you know you're getting right, as opposed to just guessing it because they're useful. So cheat, repeat, and chill out the night before. There we go. So there's a lot of questions in the chat box. So I'm going to read through some. We're going to do a bit of a Q&A, and then we've got a bit of a slide at the end because we have got a bit of a discount coming up. So without further ado, I've saw a lot of questions. Richard Brown has asked a few things actually about level 4, and I think Sarah was answering him. So he's just jumped on to level 4, taking the first module, and he's not sure he understands all the info and resources available to him within First Intuition. So Ruth, maybe, in fact, you might be a good person, because I know that you and Phil have been chatting an awful lot. What resources does Richard have available to him?
So in terms of First Intuition resources, actually Phil just made a really good point then about your tutor. So number one, your tutor. And yeah, I'm terrible in the run up to exams, as Phil knows. Like, I'm constantly emailing him with like revision questions, so just like stuff that I'm going through and I didn't understand, and he's absolutely amazing, and yeah, just puts up with me like constantly emailing stuff. So number one, your tutor. Obviously you have your course notes, your question bank, your task bank, and your mocks. And again, like, the mocks are really, really important, and make sure you do your First Intuition mocks with plenty of time to get the feedback from your tutor, because obviously that's really key. I also really like what you were just saying, Martin, about doing mocks and like cheating. I mean, I do that all the time with questions. So I've harped on about question practice, but I absolutely 100% will use questions as revision. So if I'm doing a question and I'm like, I don't know the answer, I can't do it, I'm stuck, I absolutely at that point in time will go and look at the answers, because I think then that's part of the learning process, isn't that? It helps you learn.
Yeah, backwards learning. Learn
Yeah,
how they've got that, because there's nothing worse if you look at a question, look at the answer, and it's nothing like what you put in it, what's going on. So yeah, just figure out what the true answer is.
Yeah. So tons and tons of First Intuition resources, and then on the AAT website there's also like loads of resources as well, which I would absolutely recommend using fully.
Can I say, the one thing that I love that First Intuition do is they give you detailed answers of the AAT mocks as well. So I find that really helpful, because obviously the AAT, they just give you the answers. They're not going to tell you how to get there. So I really like looking at the answers for the that First Intuition put down for them.
Yeah.
Brilliant. A couple more questions, more I suppose of a quick fire round. Naheed is asking, how long for management account costing? Any of you, how long did it take?
3 weeks I took.
3 weeks, Ruth?
I wrote it in my diary how long I gave myself. 4.5 weeks.
Planning, I love it.
Wow, that's super fast. I mean, I just did it in whatever. Phil, what was the time that we did? Is that level 3? Is that level 3? Oh, okay. Sorry, I was thinking that was level 4. I have no idea. Probably 8 weeks, I would have said then, probably, for me.
Kelly Butler was asked, how long did you guys take to complete level 3?
2.5 months.
Go on,
Wow,
Sarah.
that is quick. Go on.
So 9 months. 9 months for me.
I'm about 6 months. I put down about 4 weeks per normal module and 8 weeks for my synoptic. Not that I have used that much time. I think I've probably been revising for my synoptic for about 4 weeks. I had 4 weeks where I was faffing, and so yeah, I'd say 4 weeks per module.
It's lovely that we've got such a nice broad spectrum, which is exactly where our stats sit, of between that kind of 2 month to kind of, what are we thinking here, 3 months to 6 months for a level, 7 or 8 if you're kind of a bit limited on time. So it's lovely that we've got everyone getting similar results, but with very different input. How do you fit the study into a busy work schedule?
Oh, it's so hard. I've got a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. I'm out of the house between 7:30 and 6:30, and then I get home, I put them to bed, and then yeah, I just try and do an hour every night.
It's busy. Anybody else? I know that Ruth, you said you kind of working part-time. How do you fit it all in?
Yeah, so sorry, I can't, honestly, hats off to Sarah and anybody. I mean, I know like probably the majority of students are like that they're working full time. I think a lot of people probably have young kids. So yeah, I don't feel I'm qualified really to comment on this one because I'm at a different life stage. My kids are kind of mostly, they're still at home, but they don't need me. And I only work part-time. So actually it's interesting, isn't it? Because I probably have more time than the other two ladies, but I've kind of taken longer. I've just allowed myself longer to do each of the modules. I don't feel the need to rush through them in, you know, in such a short period of time. But yeah, it's not difficult for me in terms of the time to find to study.
What are your top tips for keeping motivated? Megan, do you want to take this one?
I think it all ties in to doing it a bit quicker, because if I eke it out over weeks and weeks and weeks, I just find I just get out of the mindset for it. So once you're in the zone with it, and I'll book in sort of a day's worth of studying each week where I can, and I'll do a few hours. I just slot it in where I can, and I just try and just get through it. And as we've all said, as we all do, is get your exam booked in. That is your motivation. You've paid £75 to do it. You might as well just get it done. And if you're going to do it, you're going to need to study for it. And I think someone else asked whether those time frames include revision and studying the modules. And for me, it does. It's 4 weeks, which is working through the course notes and then revision, but it's all built into one with the first intuition folder. It's all the same thing. It's one big folder, and you work your way through it, and by the time you get to the end, you've done your revision and you've learned everything. So yeah.
Excellent. Great stuff. Well, this brings us to the end. I just want to thank everyone that's turned up. I want to thank the panelists for giving up their time and speaking to us today. And don't forget, we've got a discount on, as you can see on the screen. so yeah, but no, thank you very much for coming up, and I hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope you managed to pick a few tips up, at least one, and that would help.